Welcome, my friends, to All Souls Aquarian Temple. It is good that we are here. We are setting aside this time in this space as something very beautiful and magical to happen. Using the power of our intention and focused energy, firmly rooted and grounded into the goddess Gaia, Mother Earth, my friends, is where we are being called to enter into spiritually. The sun, the light is shining on in this world right now. What is being brought to light, highlighted by the sun, the highlight in the sky, in the constellation, the area of our sky that holds the energy of mutable fire in air. Air is what gives life when we take our last breath, that which animates us, that spark, fire element leaves the person, that energy moves on to go on, hopefully, what is true and in the light, and what is material, not so much, not our material body. It doesn't look like that moves into the next realm, but our causal body, our energetic body, on different atomic levels, undetected even by the modern scientist who has separated metaphysiological and metaphysics from the material physical realm. So in that realm of science, I'm afraid they might even keep us in the dark with some stuff. I'm afraid. We have this energy coming up, which is Jupiter together with Neptune in Pisces, which Pisces can be its mutable water. You can be lost in the waters of delusion, coming together into a sextile, which is where they come together and they produce something in sex. 3 signs away from each other. The third sign being Gemini, the sign of the lovers in the tarot, which is the 6th card, actually. But for the sake of this, we're talking about Pluto in Capricorn, who is recycling, transforming our authoritative structures of earth and power expressed in earth into, it's going to come into a sextile. So that's like the dark freaking elite are going to they're going to come together and do something big, because Jupiter's there, something perhaps nefarious and to like fool us. And I mean, that's already been in play some, but that's gonna be more of a highlight. Let's just using the media for like a total false flag. How can we interpret this positively? Let's do that. Sagittarius season is a sign of hope and optimism, faith. But so is Sagittarius, so is Pisces, and that's beautiful. But it can be that faith gets used for like against us. But so what are some beautiful ways that we get really spiritual? Really, Jupiter expands, makes it big to experience it, to gain wisdom from it. In a 30-degree angle, or made up of 3, 6, and 9. Dog, Tesla got it. Because 3 is the power of creation, and this comes in because Jupiter is a ruler of Sagittarius. Jupiter is a creator, Zeus. His number's 3. The triangle goes to him. He's Marduk of ancient Babylonia, where we get this from. And he was seen as the king who goes through an experience, and then it's wiser after it's gone through the earlier developmental stages from the moon out to Mars. Jupiter is a king because it sits outside, higher up on the throne. But behind the throne is Saturn, who, here he is in a place where it loves to be, Aquarius, where it's the mastermind. And that mastermind, like the person behind the matrix of controlling the masses of Aquarius, is coming out of a conflict of a square angle, which has the energy of Mars, it's the tension and energy, to fixed Taurus with the revolutionary liberator Uranus there. So we have this revolutionary spirit in Earth trying to break out of its old shells in conflict with the air, like the thoughts and the ideas, restrictions, Saturn and Aquarius, that are keeping us controlled mentally. Saturn in Aquarius gone bad is like having everybody enslaved and not even knowing it. But then we've had people speaking to it, and perhaps poorly, because we've had Mars in retrograde in Gemini. Kanye West is a Gemini. Mars rules Aries. Kyrie Irving is Aries. Who else said something controversial? David Chappelle, stand-up comedian. Stand-up comedian is a Sagittarius thing. It is. They can say things bluntly, and sometimes they don't have a filter sometimes. They could also always be preachy. I have a Sagittarius moon. Our lunar body is what we really want to work on purifying, because that's like our karmic debt that we brought into this. That's what the birth sign is the map of your karmic stuff you brought in, positive or negative, both. And we're trying to work through that as we work through our chart, or through our life, through the day, through the cycles of seasons. And we have these opportunities to pass these tests, to evolve our soul, is the teaching. Evolutionary astrology. And so we often get to see somebody's personality traits, and often it's our personality traits that we need to suspend, that are caught up to our ego body that we made ourselves, which is the cause of suffering, according to the syncretic teachings of esotericism, Gnosticism. Which is bringing me to the fire of Sagittarius comes into the last sign to bring us into the very darkness of winter, the death of the sun, the spear of the centurion, of the centaur, of Sagittarius, into the ribs of Christ. Odin stabbing himself in the side. Also, this has to go with tauroctomy, which is the slaying of the bull, but this is more the slaying of the goat, or just in Capricorn. Sagittarius is we want to slay the lower part of us, or what we're hung up onto sexually, using our desires, which we're just coming out of Sagittarius, out of Scorpio, which is sexual genitals, and using that sexual energy, not getting used by it. I mean, just going around and chasing after the gratification of our sexual desires. Does that lead us to a life that's most beneficial for our soul's evolution? I don't think, perhaps not. So here's the teaching. Out of that trial that we go through in Scorpio, which is a deep psychoanalytical dive, we will receive the fire of Sagittarius, together with the breath of God, which we first got the breath in Gemini, who rules the lungs, and then in Libra, which started us off with the trek up the hill. There's two, there's the book of life and the book of death. And to get us ready to travel to the book of death, we first were given the breath of life in Libra. Is when they say Tishrei is when Adam and Eve were created. Out of this rib is what Eve was taken from. And through the rib is where that spear goes, because this fall, this sin, by first giving into our human desires on a sexual level, on a base level, was the cause of us for going to a base metal level, heavy existence. But with those who have retained some spark of love in the act of procreation, perhaps keeps the human freaking spirit, and I'm totally losing the soul. Yeah, that just shows. They talk about in Christianity how, like, when Eve ate from the tree, or Adam ate from the tree of knowledge of good, he partook in the fruit, the forbidden fruit, which the Gnostics teach is releasing your seed without, not even the sense of without wedding, a marriage, without just for procreation, but just in an animal rapacious way, just pure lust and objectifying the two, and but when coming together, and some element of there, because they say that this existence is a product of that. That's kind of the idea of original sin, which is present in Judaism. Augustine didn't make it up. And it is that we are in a fallen type of existence because of karma, hereditary phenomena passed on through our genes. And then so the editing of genes is kind of a way of like spiting God, which I think is pretty, like the whole transhumanist thing is it's a religious movement. And Elon Musk is the high priest of that church, ain't he? Ain't he? Don't Jeff Bezos have a bunch of freaking power and money? Well, my friends, I'm gonna get up and move around a little bit, because Sagittarius is moving fire. Looks good. Move around. It's in the top of your legs, just like a horse would. Like the horse have strong legs. You can find a Sagittarius because they got some strong, probably longer legs. They're usually taller. That's a long ass bone in your body. And they sometimes look at me like a horse. Oh man, too good. It is the 9th sign of the zodiac, Sagittarius, which is the first week we're in right now. 9 is the number, it's the sacred number of how many signs, months it takes to bring us to birth. If you conceive in Sagittarius season, you give birth in Leo. If you whatever sign you're conceived in, that same sign, a trine, 120 degrees later, is going to be in the same element that you're born in if you go through the 9 months thing. But you still have that stamp, that energy stamp on you. So the idea of conception to inception is 9, which goes to Jupiter, who is the creator, God. The 3rd number, numerically, is what's given to him. The product of the 1 and the 2, the son of God, Jupiter. Zeus. Jesus. So, 3 times gives us 9. But then 9 is actually the number of Mars. And wouldn't you believe that the ninth card of the tarot is dedicated to Virgo? But Mars has his joy in the planet Virgo. The Virgin Mary, Mars. Which means bitter. Because bitter is related to Mars. Bitter C, Miriam. The Virgin Mother. Virgo. Archetypes pasted with stories pasted on to this. So we have to get out of this literal meaning that there was historical stuff. So that the biggest place that we get. Preach, Liam. It is Sagittarius is a sign of the preacher, the fiery preacher, air, and fire. And sometimes it can be filled with a lot of hot air, like a helium balloon. And Jupiter is a ruler of Sagittarius. And what is Jupiter mainly made of? Air. Helium. They just happened to figure that out? No, there has been secret gnosis, knowledge hidden, and allegories played out. And the commonality is the working, the channeling of energy, the source of life. In sex, where creates life, is going to be a more concentrated, fruitive existence of energy. So how do we not get used by this energy? By just being chasing overindulging in our pleasures and desires. That can be a Sagittarian quality. The overdrinker, the overeater, Sagittarius. Sagittarius, if you have Jupiter, Sagittarius on your ascendant, you're going to be tall, bigger. It's somebody with a Jupiter prominent in their chart or Sagittarius, a big personality. You're going to have that in your second house of money and finance, hopefully in Taurus or Earth sign. Big bank account, big banks. And that's just karma stuff that we brought along. And these energy things have to give out. So what we want to do is work with it. It's going to rain. It's going to rain. Do we put an umbrella on? Do we catch pneumonia? Do we dance in it? Do we build a retaining water system to feed other towns? That, my friends, is what we're here to do, I think, is to create a better way of getting along. And by taking the Christian scriptures, the Hebrew scriptures, the Abrahamic scriptures, which eventually gave birth to Islam, as literal, we are just bringing forth racial supremacism. And then we have somebody arguing over who's the real main character of this book. Of course, the people who wrote it are going to put themselves as the freaking chosen. I'm bringing water. So now we have all this air and fire. We are going to want to have more water and more earth. And try the temperance card is the great alchemist angel doing alchemy with a square and a triangle in it. The triangle being the three ways that we get existence: the beginning, the middle, the end, ruled by Jupiter. Father, Mother, Son, the Trinity. the top of the Sephirotic tree with the 7 underneath it. The 7 rays of light that come out of the one white hitting the triangle. That would be black, actually. I think that's where they have a black cube off. But and then the square, being the 4 elements, 4 directions, namely the 4 elements. And when we have those together, we get the 12 signs of the zodiac, or the 7 heavenly visible luminaries, the septenary. The 12 signs, which 1 to 2 goes to 3, numerologically. That's why Jupiter takes 12 years to go around the zodiac. He's the one who divides this up into 12, which is why he's also has to do with wisdom. And then Saturn, understanding. So here's the teaching, my friends, and this seems to be what I could gather from it. Some things I have to say. Gnosticism does kind of condemn this world. It's like part of the teaching is like this is almost like we're in hell, pretty much. And that the body, they talk about it sometimes as like a trap that we need to get out of. And they're talking about it as fallen. And this has been an age-old church thing. And the Roman Catholic Church would be like, well, we come up with the idea that Christ, the true light, entered into it through his nativity, his birth, took on the human flesh, redeeming it. And in Judaism, they have that thought alive in the Kabbalist tree of life. Keter, we just talked about that enough. Okay, here's the top, the number 1 part of the tree of life, a diagram of our cosmology. The emanations, how God, how thought, how everything crystallizes into this realm from the top to the bottom, which is where Earth. We have Keter, which is called the crown, which is almost on top of this, which is what we want to do. We want to be outside of it and in the middle of things. Isn't that beautiful, kind of? And that has to do with the imagery that we see of a unicycle, the Joker card, which is kind of like the Fool card in the Tro, on a unicycle. The Fool on the hill. But Keter relates to Kessel. Kessel is the name for the Orion constellation, who's on top of the zodiac. And he's called the Fool on the hill. The Fool card is Orion, but it's also the king in disguise. Ooh! And that relates to Jupiter as the philosopher king. So from Keter, the crown, we go to, which is likened to the father, the son, which is Hesed. No, Hesed. And then over here to Banah. So this is Chokmah, Banah, and this is likened to Saturn, who's a feminine aspect. Path of severity, of mercy. In the middle, path of equilibrium. That's the high cross. And then it crosses again right here, which is Mars. See on the path of severity. And then we cross Mars, which is the sun, which is Tiferet, which is our soul. And then we go to Venus, Netzach, on the path of mercy. And then we go to Hod, which is Mercury. Then to the moon. Then to the moon. Then to Earth. See, I messed up. There's one up here. Anyways, what this is showing is the all-seeing eye at the top of the pyramid. The Trinity alive and well in Judaism, as we get the Trimurti from India. Father, mother, child. And then from those top three, that Holy Trinity gives us our 7 rays of light, our 7 chakras. We want to raise up. When we're raising it up, it's likened to a serpent going up the spine, and which is, we grab it by its handle at the base like a sword with our willpower, controlling our desire to take us higher, inflamed with fire in the inverno, in the winter, in Sagittarius, the fire given to us in the dark to give us light, to bring us through the dark winter months, the 3 days of death, to rise Easter Sunday. Can I get a hallelujah? Hallelujah! This is what happens in nature macrocosmically. This is what happens to us microcosmically. When we do our sacraments and our rituals, we do these outward symbols to bring about that inward change as we synchronize ourselves up with our will with the will for the good of all. And so when we do things on a small little level, they affect everything microcosmically. So that's how we turn mundane activities into magical offerings for the salvation of souls. The souls who got too lost in the dense material realm that are going to have to go to the purgation of fire to return back to the breath, hopefully more evolved. There's evolution, which is the expression, the breathing out, the exhale. And then there's the inhale, the involution, the devolution, the degeneration. It's part of the cycle. Darwin talks about evolution, but he's missing out on the devolution of the way that this works. And that which is not of the light will get burnt away. That's just, we see that nature does that. So instead of getting recycled by nature, and we see the face of Kali, which is the divine feminine that comes to bring a sword, cutting off heads and shit, we get a chance to invite the sacred mother, Kali, Shiva, Prakti, the primal, preemptive, precious, perfect prana energy. PR. That's purr. That's like the purring of it. That's a primal energy. And when we harness that by working it up through visualization, through love, through feeling, connected with in love, and not just an animalistic expression of the sexual union, when it's done as a magical sacrament And through discipline, we're able to, and I think even health and has that's how we ultimately pass and evolve into our soul quicker. I believe is the teaching. They say you could still do it as you're single, but to practice chastity, which is pornography and watching like pornography and masturbating, is seen as almost a black type of magic that has been let out on this world to keep us from really consciously evolving, I'm afraid. And being christened with that chrism oil, that virgin oil that's guarded by this dragon in this cave that we have to slew with wisdom. Sagittarius. He's got his arrow pointed at the head of the scorpion to slay that lower base rapacious energy for a higher spiritual, higher purpose. And that is for the transmutation, Sagittarius with the card of temperance. The transmutation of the earthly waters of the womb that we were born into, that nurture us, the sacred feminine that we resurrect as the phoenix from the Scorpio, as an eagle, higher minded, thinking above and over and outside of things, but fully engaging with it, Scorpio, right, symbolized in the act of the god and goddess coming together into the sexual union. And then we're given birth to souls on a higher level. That's the teaching that I've come across, and it seems to sit well with me. When we contain this energy, it's called vril, V-R-I-L, in the Scandinavian, Germanic areas, and it is where we get virility from. And the bottom here is likened to a furnace, where we get the fornax from. The fornax is the goddess of, that's likened to an oven, where we get furnace from. And we want to use that furnace for a flame to set our whole, to create our light astral causal body that can withstand the fire that passes through higher into the next existence. Coming down this is likened to a lightning bolt that flashed through the air, bam, into the tree of life, which is the chalice, which is, here's the cup of the priest is Venus to Neptune, Venus to Mercury over here, to the sun. That's the second. Here's the top triangle. Here's the second triangle. Here's the third triangle. Anyway, it's Venus, the sun, and Mercury together. The three planets closest from the sun to us, not including the moon, is the sign of the priest. And so it's 33 degree in our spine, and we have to go through each degree in our spine is a degree that we get tested on. We have to pass. They bring you through this in the Masonic 33 degrees, but life, I'm pretty sure, brings you through this, and it's measured with the movements of the moon, especially. It's a great tester. I think monster comes from moon. But she could also be our guiding light. There's a positive and negative side to everything. We want to try to work with that, because it's an electric magnetic force that brings us, when just realizing that dual nature is getting us off the black and white checkerboard, first of all. Now 10 is the top Keter, but In the middle, not seen, is the eye, which I think is the eye, which is like into a door. The door, the cloud of unknowing. Now, the this is likened to the priesthood because it's ministering to Malkuth, to the kingdom, by bringing together Mercury, Hermes, together with Venus, Aphrodite, where we get hermaphrodite from. But it's perfectly melding the masculine and feminine together, not at the expense of one another, but to elevate them both. And that's really it's likened to a crystal, a quartz. It's two cubes together into one, the dodecahedron. 22 paths from each Sephiroth, which is likened to the 22 letters in Hebrew, the 22 major arcana of the Tarot, which, interesting. 33, they say that there's 5, so we go through the 33 vertebrae in our spine, but that we have to go through that in 5 different levels of like consciousness. And then so 33 times 5 happens to be 165. The sun, 1 is the number for sun, 6 is for Venus, and 5 is the number for Mercury. And there is our priestly triangle right there, 165. That the high priest who's passed through the 33 tests of the vertebrae through the 5 bodies, reaching number 165. Who's been crowned as the priest king, priestess queen, whatever. And I think it's done by not letting your semen out at a low level through just like unhealthy sexual practices. But I think it's by rising it up through love, breathing, especially pranayama, breathing in, working to cooperating in the sexual act. And if you can't do this because you're not in a relationship, ideally married, I'm pretty sure too, where you're both acting as priest and priestess, king and queen, elevating the base animality of the sexual thing, and then bringing it to divinity. It's the reason for our fall, perhaps, but also the root for our, I don't want to say escape, but elevation. And that's the teaching, my friends. If you're single, just trying to do it through conscious living and virtue, the 7 virtues, likened to our turning our 7 chakras from out of the world of vices into virtue. Not just filling yourself with like lust, greed, ego, bad ego stuff. They teach that actual elimination of ego, and our personality is often very much taught to that. And so even eliminating our personality, and I know, but we use it as a mask, but just so we could be a channel to more effectively, perhaps. All right, my friends, that was a lot. It may seem, but this is Jupiter spiritual type stuff. Wisdom teachings is Sagittarius stuff. Stuff that's been hidden. Scorpio stuff. We got the Justice card, number 11. Let's see if my camera picked that up. Yeah, that's not really focused because I don't have autofocus. I'm passing around the basket so we get a decent camera. I do want to get a building. We need one. People need to learn this stuff so we stop hurting ourselves with these literal teachings and not even knowing. Do you think there's Perhaps a reason why pornography is free? I think they might be trying to push it on us, dog. We cry out to Mother Goddess. Please have mercy on us. Forgive us for misusing our senses. Help us to elevate them to that we might be more sensitive to others, more sensitive to the spirit and its direction in our life. It is tough on this journey to know what is truth, but I believe we do, ingrained in the depths of our consciousness, on our writing, on our hearts, what is ultimately the right choice and what is not. And we ask for any heavenly help that there might be to help us to make these right decisions and to choose the path that leads to life. That although our bodies might be degenerating because they are caught up in the cycle of time, death and rebirth, may our souls be growing. May our consciousness be expanding. And yea, may even our material earth become healthier. May we have our bank accounts become more wealthier. Justice. Yeah. Justice upon this world. Let us be thankful that we haven't received the justice perhaps that we deserve. Let us ask for perhaps mercy, that we might not be given out everything karmically dealt to us that we deserve, but may we bestow the mercy that we hope to receive. Is there a judgment? That sometimes it doesn't look like it in this world when we see all these people being rich and successful and dark as shit, looking to lord over others, and have been for the longest. They don't seem to be getting their comeuppance. But perhaps this is a free will zone. What are we doing with our will? I can't control what other freaking people do. What I can control is what I do. And I control that so miserably. But I keep on trying. Everything you got. Sagittarius is a cheerleader. Cheering up that goat. It's the god cheering that goat up the hill of Capricorn. Also to its own fucking death. To kill our ego. To nail it on the cross. That we might be able to be born into life. Everlasting. Eternal. But here's a secret. Eternity is in the realm of time. And therefore subject to space and death, rebirth. There's that middle section, which is why the middle seasons are hailed with our celebrations. The fixed signs. Ezekiel's wheel. The face of the man, Aquarius. The water bear. Something like a freaking eagle in the air season of fall. Scorpio. Something like the bull of Taurus. And then something like something of a Leo lion. The 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. Because there's the middle. Where we want to get to ultimately. Because everything's constantly changing and moving. Sagittarius is an energy that shows us that. Fire, moving fire, immutable fire. The immutable signs is it's baptism by fire. So we really need to work on tempering that fire, to alchemicalize. Sagittarius is a spiritual ecstasy. It's a vision. It's looking up. The arrow pointed up. Depends which way you're looking. May we, the whole keeping your oil in your lamp to be able to hold that flame is talking about this. May we be forgiven for our ignorance, because we're not even guilty for when we don't know about this than when we sin against it, blaspheme against the Holy Spirit, the third person, Banah, the feminine of the tree of life, of the Holy Trinity. Shekinah. Shekinah. Let's start. Asherah. Here's Asherah pole. Asherah, the consort of Yahweh, Jupiter. What a time to be alive. I should have brought water. Today's Saturday. It's the blessed Shabbat. So you should pay attention to Saturn Day. It's the planet Saturn type stuff. Which they certainly do. Because their whole thing is built on astrology. It's only these Christians who don't even know it. All the Kabbalists, the rabbis, know all of this stuff. They don't teach the outsiders. The high Masons know all this stuff. The Pythagorean schools, the Greek schools, because it's the mystery cults, of which a reflection of is the perverse ones alive in college campuses. So they give fraternity and the chance for brotherhood, masonry. Yes, they do, and even religion. But do they teach any of this? No. Or when they do, through the Lamech practices of taken on by Aleister Crowley and the hijacking the OTO, perverting this shit, doing dark tantra instead of tantra with the pure light and love. It's will over love, not together. And that, my friends, this Justice card is likened to Libra, and it's the 11th card of the Zodiac, which is likened to Aquarius, where they both have in common Saturn, who dishes out dharma, karma. Karma king is Saturn. Saturn is exalted in Libra at the writing of the book of life. As we enter into the book of death, Saturn is at home in Aquarius, in the 11th sign, where we find him right now. This is mastering our minds, disciplining ourselves so that karma, dharma doesn't do it to us in a way that is more painful. And it is through the mercy of God, perhaps, that we do get chastised. But let us not pervert that into putting children in pictures with baby stuffed dolls and Balenciaga advertisements. Just a peek of what the Pluto and Capricorn, what these elites are doing behind the scenes. Baal-lencia. Ago, the worship of Baal. And what that is just a perversion of a Mesopotamian god to turn into the enemy. The Greek gods, the daemons, like a diamond, a spiritual entity, turned into a demon because the one that took over this, who wrote this history, that so many people have bought into is from the language of Hebrew, which is taken from a combination of Akkadian, Sumerian, Syrian, in common with Aramaic, from Phoenicia, who wasn't uttered out by the word of God, but this, through thanks to Christianity and Islam, who have kept alive the Hebrew Pentateuch, the foundation scriptures, this religion of Judaism has not only survived, it's preserved itself and thrived. That God Yahweh, their interpretation of Jupiter, together with El, of the Elohim, Saturn, they pasted themselves onto this as them being the light, and the rest who aren't worshiping their God and them as God's people are the darkness that needs to get vanquished. There's an unhealthy interpretation of this. So we look into it and acknowledge that and understand it from the context it came out of, and so that we don't find ourselves just pasting ourselves onto it and say, no, now we're the real chosen. We're the black Hebrew Israelites. We're the white supremacists. This Bible has been the source of our racial supremacy. Religion used to justify it. Oh, but we have this to respect, this amendment to respect religions. Well, what if the religion is inherently subversive and wants your destruction and just thinks of you as a host to be sucked from, because your eventual collapse and destruction is inevitable? New Babylon, New Egypt, Esau, land Edom. God, the Bible's called out for more genocide and responsible for more deaths than any tyrannical, totalitarian dictator. Woo! Jupiter can be preachy, but often it is reminding us, it's coaching us, it's encouraging us, it's giving us spiritual energy and upliftment for us to carry through our cross. We got the triple cross on here on the top of the Pope's staff. You think they don't know the hermetic, alchemical, cosmological meanings of this? Yes, they do. They don't teach to the common person because they think the common person doesn't deserve to know it, wasn't born into an elite family, isn't worthy to catch the scraps underneath the table, the dogs, the not humans, the goyim. That, my friends, would be an unhealthy way to interpret this existence. It's often the root of many of our mental psychosis is looking to blame everything on somebody else. Oh yeah, everything, they own everything, and so that's why my life, the puppet holders, they control whether you participate in the production of some fucked up pornography creation and then distribution. Are the puppet holders behind the scene responsible ultimately for wanting to do such a thing? No. That's where we do have the exercise, in some way at least, to express our free will, and how are we utilizing that? Is it always for the highest and the best? For that which is beautiful, true, good? Or we just look for opportunities to subject everything to justify our demoralization? Are we holding up that which is sacred, divine, beautiful, good, godly, holy? Do we have anything encouraging us to a life of virtuosity? Or are we celebrating fucking degeneration of the soul and that which helps us upon the spiritual path? So may we not beat ourselves up too much. The moon is in Capricorn right now, which it could get a little heavy. So, but it is asking us to be responsible right now. And it's ultimately, we're being encouraged to look at things with love, to think of things with a loving filter, that is good for us to commune with others in friendship and camaraderie. That would be Mercury and Venus together in Sagittarius with the Sun. Mercury and Venus will be traveling together in Sagittarius, very close to each other. That could be opportunities for us to be that beautiful priestess, a conduit, a medium for light to enter into this world. Or it could also give us the opportunity, our mind, Mercury, to be reading a bunch of spiritual shit and not doing any of it. Venus to be just sit back and watch self-help books or videos on YouTube and I never actually do shit. But also, let us not go temperance for trying to balance these. Let us not go, it's also important to rest. The masters, teachers of yoga, especially lately, would say that they advise people just to relax. If you really want to start working up your spine. But it takes a decision. And I've ignored a decision. And I like to take this moment now. Who's with me? Who's coming with me? Let us choose to walk on this spiritual path. May we beckon that frickin' angels of heaven to wrestle with these demons from hell. The devils that are inside of us, that we might raise above our base nature into our true human nature with the help of the supernatural. So it is, my friends. This was a long one, but I hope it was fun. The All Souls Aquarian Temple. The Aquarian.tv. Book a reading. We're trying to raise money to get a building, have a school, get on every campus, create the most beautiful services and rituals, teaching this most beautiful, sacred knowledge. Today is a very good time.